Hi, I'm Bob Aldridge. My project involves correcting translation errors in the New Testament. The official story, told by the Church for many centuries, is that the entire New Testament was originally written in Koine Greek, the kind of everyday street Greek spoken by the common people in the Roman Empire. However, Jesus spoke Aramaic, as did most people in first century Palestine. And there are many problems in the Greek Gospels. And this doesn't jive, having the Gospels in Greek while Jesus and everybody else spoke Aramaic. So what's the real story? Well, there's a theory that there was an Aramaic Gospel that was actually the first Christian writing, and that the problems in the Greek text are translation errors from this Aramaic gospel. After Jesus' death, his apostle Matthew wrote down everything he could remember of Jesus' sayings in a writing that is called the Sayings of Our Lord. It was written about 40 A.D. It was the first Christian writing. For 25 years, it was the Church's only written account of the life and teachings of Jesus. In the 20th century, there have been a half a dozen major biblical scholars that have studied this. To study this, you have to know both Koine Greek and Middle Aramaic. The main scholars involved in this research were C.C. Torrey, who was head of the Semitic languages department at Yale; Matthew Black, who was one of the two or three most important experts on the Greek New Testament in the 20th century; and Frank Zimmerman, a Jewish scholar who was, in his lifetime, was probably the world's foremost expert on Aramaic verbs. Looking at through the writings of these scholars, there are so far I've cataloged over 500 errors in my book. Many are minor, but some are major. And I didn't use all the material. For example, on Matthew 5:13, the Greek text literally talks about if the salt becomes foolish. That doesn't make sense. Salt can't become foolish. It's likely that the underlying Aramaic verb was sere, which does mean foolish in one of its stems, but means to become spoiled in another stem, and the translator didn't know that. Another example in Mark 10:25 talks about a camel going through the eye of a needle. It's kind of a ridiculous image. It's the word camel in Aramaic is spelt, the letters GML, Gimel Mem Lamed. Well, those same letters also spell gamla, which means rope, which makes much better sense to talk about, to say that a rope cannot go through. It's easier for a rope to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter into heaven. And my book does a lot, but there is much more to be done. The goal is to get the rest. Produce a comprehensive alternative for Gospels that will supplement the canonical Gospels in the New Testament and make it widely available to those studying the New Testament, and offer further proof that the Gospels are right